We have Lauren's presentation queued up.
Good morning, everybody. How's everyone? All right. We had a good time last night, didn't we? All right. Closing us out today, I'm going to give you guys actually a general organics recycling update for the state of Florida. And I'll give you a little highlight into what we've been seeing this past year for food waste composting as well. So let's get started. All right, so we do have some preliminary numbers, and Karen's gonna show you more of the overall picture of our municipal solid waste generated in 2025. So she'll give you a more full picture, but I'm gonna focus on the organics this morning. Interesting, this is the first time that the tonnage has not changed. So roughly 54.5 tons of municipal solid waste was generated in 2025, same as 2024. So we've seen some fluctuations in the materials. Some have went down, some have went up, but very interesting to see this. And so what's changed between 24 and 25 on the organic side? Of course, as expected, we saw that total newspaper generation has went down. And we also saw an overall yard waste generation down. And I believe that's because we didn't have a major storm season last year. So that's reflected here. But the recycling rate has increased by 10%. And food waste generation has remained constant, but the recycling rate has remained at 4%. And the processed fuel has also went down in the past year. And that includes yard waste and paper. Okay, so overall, the focus of the organics recycling program has been on our source separated organics processing facilities. We have about 300 of those in the state of Florida, and that includes yard waste facilities that both mulch and compost. It also includes our food waste composting facilities, manure composting facilities, and animal byproducts as well, which is also food waste. And so also there has been a statewide increase in community composting operations and also local government partnerships, which we love to see. So there has been a big increase in that this past year. We are in the process of updating Chapter 62709, the organics recycling rules, so stay tuned for more updates. Okay, and I wanted to do a little highlight on food waste composting. So we have permitted our first DPAC facility here in the state of Florida in the past year. And we also have another application in-house. This is big news, and it kind of shows where the industry is going with food waste. So with that, there are two options for this permit. And so we do encourage you, if you're looking at installing a DPAC at your facility, please reach out to DEP and request a pre-application meeting so that we can go over these two options with you and steer you in the right direction of additional permitting. And there's also been an increase, as I mentioned, in local partnerships, which I think is very big. And so one of the biggest updates has been there was a grant with Miami-Dade County, and so they partnered with a local composter. And they're going to be doing food waste composting at the South Dade landfill, the old South Dade landfill, and also at their facility in Homestead. And here's just an overview of our organics recycling facilities. As I mentioned, there's roughly 300 facilities that are registered. The majority of those are processing yard waste. And we also see that the food waste numbers are also going up each year. So each year we're seeing more and more food waste composting facilities under registration. We're also seeing more on the air side as well. So anaerobic digestion of waste, we're seeing more permits in that direction, and also the air curtain incinerator to process and manage all the yard waste we're generating. And we do have some exemptions, I just wanted to point them out. So we have on the farm, composting on the farm exemptions. We also have community composting operations. So those are also exempt activities under a certain threshold, 100 cubic yards, and backyard composting. And I wanted to give you an overview of the permits, so you can refer back to this slide so you know exactly what's required. So we have the SOPF registration, as I mentioned, under 62709. We also have a solid waste composting facility permit, also under 62709. And we also have an organics pilot. We see very few of these, but this is a pilot project that's not limited to composting, but we see very few of those. And then lastly, I did add the waste processing permit, and that's actually under our solid waste rule, 62701. And that's what, and that permit's required for the DPAC, if you do choose that option, in addition to the SOPF registration. And I want to go further. Biosolids is covered under our domestic wastewater program, 62640. So if you are processing biosolids, even if you're co-composting with other solid waste organics, you should get permitted under wastewater. And as I mentioned, the anaerobic digestion permit under our air program, and then the big one, the stormwater permits. A lot of people don't realize you need a stormwater permit, so I encourage you also to reach out to our stormwater program and make sure you have the appropriate water permits for your facility. I wanted to mention there are also local requirements. So in addition to the state requirements, you should reach out to your local programs to see if they have any local restrictions or requirements. This is a big slide here, and it's very important. You should always start with your local government. Always. And zoning, another thing I wanted to mention is that DEP does not evaluate zoning or local land use ordinances when we're determining whether to issue or deny a permit. It's very important. And then just to expand further, the local restrictions, franchise agreements, flow control, big one. Also restrictions on certain feedstocks. For example, Palm Beach County will not authorize food waste composting because they have 2 waste energy facilities that depend on this material. So for permit planning, this is important. Get started early. Know what permits apply. And so I do encourage you to reach out to DEP if you're looking to get started, so we can have a conversation and we can direct you to the correct permitting. And here's some of the challenges we're seeing. The biggest challenges are odor complaints, especially with food waste. We're seeing a lot of odor complaints. Some on the manure side as well, but it's mostly centered around food waste. Stormwater violations, dust. Dust is a big one with the yard trash. We get a lot of dust complaints at the state. And truck traffic is also a big one you don't consider. And also timely processing. That's one of the biggest challenges we're seeing, especially on the enforcement side. People are not meeting the process and time frame, so it's important to get all the material coming in processed timely, and also the processed material removed timely within 18 months. And as I mentioned, I know it seems like forever we've been in rulemaking, but we are getting closer. But some of the changes do include new definitions, also an operations plan requirement for registered facilities. That's going to be a big one. Yard trash pile dimensions. We do have dimensions currently for other organics, up to 12 feet for composting other organics. So we're looking at a similar requirement for yard trash piles. And new organic feedstocks. So we're looking at formally defining sargassum seaweed, because we are having these challenges, especially in Southeast Florida, and also requiring a permit for that activity. And some of the other emergent waste streams we've been seeing is the liquid food waste, and also domesticated pet waste. We get a lot of inquiries for that. And with the new definitions, here's just a preview of what we're considering. We got the feedstock, that's a big one. We don't have that defined at all right now. community compost and mechanical compaction, again, the sargassum seaweed, domesticated pet waste, compostable products. So we're gonna formally define that as well. Right now, we do have compostable products, under our current definitions for food waste, includes the packaging as well. So we're gonna have a separate category for that in the upcoming rule change. And the food waste is a big one. So we are gonna remove waste, and we are considering discards. Yeah. And that's gonna include pre and post consumer food waste. We're also gonna open it up to residential collection. That's kind of a big deal because right now, the way the structure of the rule is, we limit where this material can be generated from in order to qualify for registration. So that's gonna be a big change. And moving on, I just want to give you a quick update. As you know, we generate a lot of storm debris, but so far here in 2026, we have over 1,200 pre-authorized disaster debris management sites, and that number grows every day as counties and their sites get pre-authorization in preparation for the storm season. Education and outreach. So just a few things going on here. We've got Food Waste Prevention Week. I encourage you all to keep up with that and go to our website. You can see some updates there. And also on the waste reduction side, we have the Hinckley Center Capacity Report. I know Karen's going to talk more about that. We have our annual reports, of course. They should be published July 1st. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I'd just like to say, I'd like to thank Lauren and Florida DEP because we've been able to develop a great relationship. The board and members of the FLCC have worked very closely, I believe, over the last few years to try to enhance and help with the rulemaking. And obviously, we've opened ourselves up to help with the 62709 and continue to be very interested in helping in that regard as well. So I want to thank you very much for allowing us to be a part of the process. Next, we have Miriam Zims, and she's from Kessler, and she's going to talk about force. Miriam?
Good morning. Glad to be here to talk about Florida, dirt, leaves, different things. But I'm going to talk about really from a broader perspective, and I'll complement what Lauren had discussed in her presentation in terms of force and what its role is. We're not an association. We are a over 25-year project this year with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And it is also a link on your website. But let's talk at the bigger picture in what drives compost and what drives compost in every state nationally. And I've got different little icons up there. So let's touch base about what the federal role is or what federal policy drivers are. They do offer some grants, that's for sure, but typically they leave the states to control the regs for waste. And the lobbying arms of that are chapters and organizations like the USCC and the Florida CC. So that's where we look at from looking at what's happening and getting involved. To keep the pulse on things, obviously the Florida CC is an affiliate of USCC. So that combination is, really important. And I do want to invite you, cities and local governments and county governments or any processors or equipment salespeople to join the Florida CC too. And there's a monthly advocacy meeting where things are talked about that are happening in our state and nationally. So I do encourage you to also join that organization, and this session is to represent kind of that factor as Gary discussed. Let's talk about state. How many of you knew or know that in 1988, Florida established a yard waste ban? Not a lot of people. I think I saw six arms raised. So that ban was from 1988 until 2010. And so let's talk about what that actual definition was. Florida passed a landmark landfill ban on yard trash, leaves, brush, and tree trimmings as part of the Solid Waste Management Act of 1888. What was the goal? And I'm just going through this because to understand what from a state level would recognize or exemplify a ban in definition. The goal of the ban was designed to save rapidly shrinking landfill space and encourage composting and mulching. It was repealed in 2010, and it was overturned, the 20-year-old ban. So lawmakers voted to allow yard waste back into Class 1 landfills under the condition that the facilities capture and use the resulting methane gas for renewable energy. So that's an example of a state ban that was in place and no longer is a ban. And 88 is the same year that recycling was established by the legislature too in the Solid Waste Management Act. Locally, and I want to ask a question out to folks out there. We heard Lauren talk about the Palm Beach County situation, and they have a ban, and everybody heard, what the example was regarding what that does not allow a processor or a collector or folks to do in terms of basically impacting the flow of waste into their two waste energy facilities. Now that's a local decision that was made as a part of their integrated waste management program for their own reasons. Not judging it, just stating it, and that's why they made that decision. How many of you have anything locally regarding a policy item or a ban or anything related to organics recycling in any way, shape, or form? Okay. Yes, so we have one. Go ahead.
Hey guys. No, I was just stating that I think there are a lot of other municipalities that have flow control ordinances. Whether or not they enforce them could be different than Palm Beach County, for example, but flow control is not limited to just Palm Beach County.
Oh no, definitely understand. I was just using that as an example of one, and that's in terms of policy. So what we need is something that would encourage, right, in a policy perspective, to encourage composting and the expansion of composting. So regulations, won't go over it because Lauren talked about it. I think that Karen's going to talk about it. If you haven't read 62709 as it stands right now, and you want to know what the impact will be with the changes that are forthcoming, I encourage you to go to the Force website and I'll show you where that's at. But if you want to get involved, if you want to see what might impact things for you in your community locally, I highly encourage you, whether you're on the Florida CC or not, to read that 62709 rule and understand it, or have someone that's the appropriate person in your government to do that. The goals, we had the 75% recycling rate. Even though we added waste to energy to it, we didn't reach that goal as a state. There are, I think, only 4 or 5 local governments, if that's correct, that met that goal. Is that right, Karen?
We're getting the 25 numbers updated.
Okay,
now,
okay.
but last year, there were 3.
There were 3 last year. So, there are things that, what we're seeing as a company and enforced too, and the things, the calls we get, is that local governments are still moving forward with solid waste master plans, moving forward with composting, moving forward. So, that's a good sign, right? In terms of the policy, the goals, what you have as a goal individually for your local governments. They all play in this policy driving compost. Mandates, don't know there's any mandates here in the state, I don't believe there are. And then I talked about the ban, funding that, in the past were the grants and the foundation. And one thing I wanted to point out, if you didn't know, about the RFT license plate, the goal for that funding and getting the 3,000 signatures and moving forward is that money is intended to potentially be used for things such as grants and things like that. So I want you to understand the value and the importance of that license plate for this industry at a time where we don't have the innovative grants or the R&D grants that were funding that were to start programs back in '88 all the way through the 2000s. So just remember that, it's important. Love to get a package sent out, an RFT and an email where we can put that on our social media, our own personal ones, county ones. I don't know if that can go out as a call out so we can promote it, and help out, because that would provide for those grants. And then lastly, incentives. And so those are the kind of bigger know and I hear a lot of people in my travels in the state sound like we're a robust composting state. We're not. And we need to move that envelope and move that threshold and move that temperature gauge up. And the way to do that is through a lot of different reasons that folks will talk about, a lot of things and actions that people on the panel will be talking about. So let's talk about what FORCE is. It is a clearinghouse of information from 1988 to today on various things. And I'll be going through some that are the most important. But it is to help educate. We're not an association, we're not a consulting company, although if you need support, what we need to do and what we do, and many of you have reached out, is guide you through where to find information that would help you potentially make a decision, add to your research, and wherever you're going. And it's not backyard composting. It's related to the public-private industry sector and the agricultural industry sector, which in a fertile state that I grew up in, like the state of Florida, around orange groves, and the muck farms around Apopka, you know, fertilizer companies and other companies needing a beneficial soil product now more than ever, we're not supplying it. The demand is there. Yard waste mulching state, demand for the agricultural industry for more compost. There is a definite need here, and how we get to it involves all of us. So, let's talk about the actual FORCE website and see if I can actually get to it. I'm behind the slide, but it's okay. So, how do I open up that link? Oh, that's right. Excuse me, can you open up that link? My IT DJ in the back, in the booth. When you go to the FORCE website, this page will pop up. And this page is really an overview because there's a lot of information, and I think people miss some of it because there is so much. Remember, 88 to now. And this is printed out. Take a look at what each page is and what each sub-page is to get the specific information that you might need. And you close that out, that'll take us right to the website. Okay. If you look up top, there's various headers. The about, education, events, facilities, Florida research and demonstration. These are the reports from universities or anyone, BioCycle, different things are there. What's new, that's kind of what's new in the industry in terms of what you can do in Florida, and then the resources that are available, and then the contacts that that Lauren had in her presentation, all those individuals she mentioned that are at the state, from air to water to biosolids to wastewater to the department, it's all there. So let's start out with how to use the site. We're not going to go to that particular page because I want to make sure I stay on time. How to use the site is the homepage. It just gives you an overview, what the current most trending research topics are right now in the state of Florida, and the 3 leading researchers in the state and the work they're doing, including the sargassum that you saw by Dr. Helena Solo-Gabriel out of the University of Miami. And Lauren mentioned that for the forthcoming rules. So there's different things that you can, sargassum was one of the items that she mentioned. And so that's how you may want to use FORCE from what you'll hear today to where to go on the website for information to learn more about that topic. So on the education page, and if we could, well, it's state rules and regulations. So if you want to get 62709, if you want to go look at any of the permitting information on where to go to regarding that, then that's where you would go, and the links take you directly to the state instead of you really having to search through the DEP website. Go straight here and it will link you directly to looking at those state rules and regulations. The other things are 12 training modules that specifically relate to the 2010 regulations, which are the current regulations right now. I'm a believer as a consultant, how do you know to edit something that's forthcoming or provide feedback or raise your hand and when the forthcoming meetings will come regarding the changes and the approval process. If you don't know what was written, how can you add to the forthcoming new one? The way you do that is I encourage you to go through those modules and those PowerPoints and go in being prepared so that we're unified together, and Florida CC is going to play a big role in that, in unifying, and you know everybody has a different objective, right? So that means we meet together because just like we meet as a group, in 2010, we didn't go after everything because you can't always get what you want, but you need to get what you can in a unified manner. And that will be the role of the Florida CC in working towards that. So those resources are there. We're here to, let's go ahead and go to compost facilities, and we'll go back to food waste, which is what we're intended to be. So, oh, that's perfect, stay right there, absolutely perfect. So this, Lauren had a slide, and in that slide, she listed the SPOFs, you know, our biosolids facility, the permitted food waste facilities. This is where you can come to any of the community composters. This is where you can come could you open any of those pages, sir? And we'll scroll down. It's an interactive map that you can zoom into your area to know who is either registered or permitted for that topic at the top in your area. So you want to know who's there? Go there. Are you potentially looking at bringing a site there? Who are your competitors out there? So it's an interactive map intended to be used coming straight from the data that the DEP gets annually from the permits and registration. If you also see a typo in there about your facility, if you also aren't listed there, which happens sometimes, it just does. I often also get people write and say, Mary, we're not on that, we're not on the map, can you add us? I said, yes, please send me your registration, copy of your registration, or the letter that they get when they register a permit, and then I don't hear back. I'm not judging that, but that tells me a lot. So can you go to open up one of those sites? If you go to one of those bubbles in that map, you can just put your cursor over one. So there's information about each site that was in their registration or permit. What materials do they accept? Are they open to the public? What do they sell product? So this is a very delicious, protrusible, composting, interactive thing that I encourage you to dive into, taste some of the deliciousness, and just check it out. So what we're here today to talk about too is food waste. Can we go to the food waste page? And how much time do I have left? I want to make sure that I'm not encroaching. Okay, great. So if you go to, I'm sorry. So that's the food waste map. I apologize. Can you go to the resources title page? And if you put your cursor over the resources, and you look down, well, lo and behold, what do you see? Third one down. Food waste, right? So we're here to talk about food waste. So let's open that up. So there you see, from a federal level, what the EPA talks about in terms of food waste. Florida food waste talks about the school program. If you didn't know, we had an annual food waste week here in Florida. How you do it? You go to that site, learn a bunch of information. Maybe you might want to partner with a facility in your area and do something really cool in terms of education and outreach and get the word out. Or Florida CC. Then there is the school food waste programs, because Florida has a robust food waste program. So I just wanted to dive deeper. Every year we dive into different parts of the website that we always go over to, but I wanted, this one is one we haven't gone over. So let's open the Florida food waste, please. And to the right, and I can't see it from here, if somebody wants to shout it out what those two drop downs are. Under Florida food waste, to the right. You can't see it? Okay. Anyway, there are two drop downs that give you specific information for what you might be looking for in terms of Florida's food waste program. And so, but here is here's just what you'll find there in terms of information. Can't go through it all. That's why, just like when you first started Excel, you didn't like it, but you knew you had to continue to use it over and over to really get to know how to use it. And that's the same thing with this site. And then you became an expert. I only know all the history, first of all, because I've been a part of since 1988 to now, and lived it through different places that I've worked in the different areas where I've worked in compost, but also from a clearinghouse perspective, this is where a lot of the facts that I'll give when I ask questions or when I give information back or to correct someone in a presentation who might say this happened. There's over 100 food waste compost processing facilities in the state of Florida. And I heard that 2 months ago at a university presentation when I know that's not, and I had to raise my hand and say, excuse me. And this is where the facts are for what's happening in composting in the state of Florida. So lastly, can we go to the R&D page, research and R&D page. So many of you, I talked about the R&D, research and demonstration. This is an interactive research, and we added a search function that you can go in and you could put anything regarding composting. Can you scroll down just a little bit? You can put down, if you scroll down just a little bit more, just so we see that search function. So you put down any topic that you want R&D information about for yourself, for your company, for your processor, or you're an equipment vendor, you need to understand what's happening. If you didn't know this, we've had a lot happen in Florida with composting in terms of research. My God, are we research? We're lusciously full of research here by universities. And so any subject matter, now you might think, well, Mary, give me a hint. What are the different ways of information that you have there? What are they? What are the subject items? If you scroll down, you'll see a total of, those are all the subjects, and those are the number of research documents related to that subject matter if you don't have a search prompt in mind. So it's a plethora, a delicious plethora of talking dirty here, because we're talking about dirt, and we're talking about making improvements to our dirt to make it a valuable and viable compost or soil amendment product with nutrient resources that can be claimed. That's where we need to move from being a yard waste state to, and we heard Lauren talk about 2 facilities that are coming in. So, to help with different things regarding our hierarchy of how we're going to move product, how we're going to change product. I grew up in the foliage industry, Apopka, Florida, the foliage capital of the world. And I was around a lot of dirt. I rode my motorcycles around nurseries. And, I was family involved in that industry in Florida and in Central America. So the key is I have been trying with all these individuals up here to birth a true composting program for the state of Florida. We all have, right, Chris? No, where are you? You too. Man, I think you and I are the old goats now here. And, you're the next generation, everybody out here, and so are the individuals up here. So I hope you visit the site. Next page. Mary, does anybody come to your website? Is it really being used? I report to a higher power called the FDEP. So I need to answer that question and show you what that is. Next, that's me, next slide. Thank you. Go to the site. As we leave the site, I encourage you. So let's, as you know, you'll get this presentation. Oops. How do I open that? Can I get some help there, Mary, to just open that slide? Or, excuse me, sir. Can you open that? So, okay. So what I want you to know from that, yes, we have analytics regarding the site. And I think the most important thing that happened with the increase in use from the site is many of you see the Force Corner updates in the RFT newsletter, in the Florida CC newsletter, and in the SWANA Florida newsletter. I want to thank all the directors of those 3 organizations for allowing us to have a snippet in there. It just, like I'm doing now, there are snippets every month or every quarter that tell you about the site and how to use it. When that spiked is when we started that collaboration. That's why collaborations are important. So there it is. Now, that last huge spike, obviously anybody that deals with statistics knows we better check into that, right? A little bit. But it did happen after some things that happened in the state of Florida. The Compost Consortium, the 2nd annual, put on by the University of Florida IFAS in conjunction with Florida CC. We always see spikes. We'll see spikes after this. But we think someone is in love with the Florida website and spends from probably 8 p.m. at night to 1 p.m. on that site, just devouring all the information. But until we get the information of maybe it might be a little bot that got in there, just right now, let's hold that thought, okay? Let's just hope for the best. But anyway, regardless of all of that, you see that the website use has increased every year. And we're grateful. And I'm doing this to hopefully have you go right now or go later or go when you come back or when you have a compost question that's non-residential, non-backyard composting, you come to this site. How many of you would really like to know how many facilities are around? Those maps. You got it right there. Okay, now we're going into an interactive, I'm a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt, and I didn't bring my belt with me, because I brought my cowboy belt last night, cowgirl. So, but we're gonna do a little, we do it every year here at this conference, and we've done it at the Florida CC. We are going to check the heat index of organics recycling. So every single one of you, Bethany and Dom, are going to be passing these out. You're going to get 2 pieces of paper. The one on the right is the 11 items that make you hot, you have a concern about, you might be angry about. So it's related to heat. So the topic on the right that comes from the rule and are related to the bullets that Lauren had as concerns that are happening out in the community and things that they're addressing regarding the facilities. Miriam, I'm the hottest about safety, okay? Well then that would be, you're hot, that means you're 100%, you got a lot of heat, okay? Sometimes we get the inverse, and I know that someone hasn't understood it, so I'm gonna try to explain it visually. So take those 11 and put those numbers based on what's the hottest topic for you to the lowest and coolest. So, could you guys go ahead and, okay. So let's take about 5 minutes, all right? I think we have that much time. Hopefully we do. Take 5 minutes and I want you to fill that out, go. The list of the 11 items, that's yours to take and to get prepared for 62709 when it comes out. And the other one, if you could, when you're finished, just send them from the right to the left. Your thermometer, your heat thermometer, and I know I saw a lot of hot cowboys and cowgirls last night. So if the temperature I'm thinking is going to be pretty hot in the temperature thermometer. So
yeah, and then the sides of
no names.
it is.
Just strike out your name if you put your name. Oh, unless you want me to see it when I'm putting it in, when we're putting it into an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, and you say I want Miriam to see how hot I am about composting in Florida, then just do it.
Receiving next.
So who is not finished yet? Okay. So for me, that concludes the end of my presentation. You will see the results of these, I hope, in a RFT newsletter and Florida CC newsletter with the results. And we'll use it with a comparison of the previous years, which we presented last year. So thank you so much. Remember, we only have one Earth. And don't forget, reduce, reuse, recycle, compost, recycle, and then buy recycle. Don't forget that compost one in any education stuff you do. Thank you.
Very educational, and I've been on the board for the FLCC for a number of years, and I can tell you I learned an awful lot from your presentation, and I'm glad to know about the website and more about the website. But while I've got you up here, I would like to ask a couple of additional questions, and we'll jump into talking with our other FLCC board members and talking about what they're doing for composting in the state of Florida. Let me start out. Why do you believe a historical clearinghouse of organics recycling information is needed for the state of Florida?
I think the answer, and I'm not sure if Karen will have it in her presentation, every year Karen has a slide, and it shows the amount of food waste that's been collected since 1988 to today. And in that slide, we've been flat. And so to me, if you don't understand how much work, how much information has already been done in research in Florida, and you plan on doing additional research to add to that, I think it's important to look at what has been done, what was collected, what were the successes, to move forward and do the next research component that impacts where we are today. Because every year is different for local governments, for the state of Florida, in terms of the environmental factors, and I'm not talking about our environment, politics, technology, rules, and it changes. So the historical it's important because we need that from being flat regarding recovery of materials to going up on especially on making a better and higher quality marketable product.
Awesome. Thank you. And what do you think is the most used and underused component of the website? Because it has such great information in there.
The R&D page. Yeah.
And has the website been successfully used by industry and as it's intended to be used?
Yes and no. So I've been doing this presentation for 25 years at RFT or Florida CC or USCC or for the University of Florida IFAS. So I'm always amazed with people in the industry who have heard the presentation but don't remember it. And so, or don't use it, and I'm shocked. But, there's a lot of information. What is it we receive now? 10,000 messages a day, when back in the day before social media, it was like maybe 20 a day. That's a lot, so we're overloaded. So for that respects, it's okay.
Awesome. And lastly, what is the most misunderstood component of the website?
The facilities page. The facilities page because it's a plethora of resources, and people can get this information. Let me just give you an example. If you wanted your processor, you sell compost, and you wanted to sell compost throughout the state, maybe touch base with municipalities, get to their public works department, whatever, you can go to Oculus and download all those lists of all those facilities with their email addresses and all that. I can't do that for you. Okay? So you have to go. There was a private company that contacted us the end of last year and wanted all the information off the map. And that's not our role. We manage the website. We're not a consultant. We can do anything related to the website to provide you information. And then the person said, don't worry, our IT person can download all the information right off the map. Okay, I can't stop that. And that's great, right? They found a way. That's the biggest misconception. And I will produce an email, to help you navigate, which I do a lot to people that inquire, navigate the page, direct you to information, make a contact for you, if I know someone in the industry, directly contact you, connect you to them, Florida CC. My role and responsibility, our role as customer consultant, is to help navigate you and get usage of that website as a clearinghouse. And quite frankly, being a historian of organics recycling in Florida, I feel I can truly say that.
Wow. I'm blown away. I mean, like I said, I've been in this industry 25 years, and I think that's a tremendous amount of knowledge and one location that you can go and find out all this information. So I do highly recommend you to take advantage of the Force website, and thank you, Miriam, for an excellent presentation on the website. Thank you. Okay, now let's get into some fun stuff, because I'm going to put some of the board members of the FLCC and some of our great compost, I would say, entrepreneurs, specialists, passionate people when it comes to organics, diversion, and composting, and promoting of composting in the state of Florida. And I'd like to consider each of these individuals very close friends and colleagues as well. So I want to start out by just allowing each of you to come up one at a time and kind of introduce yourself and tell us who you work for and a little bit about what you do, and then we'll get into some Q&A. So let's start with Michelle. See.
Oh.
Sorry about that.
I get to go first. All right, so I'm Michelle Owen. I currently work with Circular Services. Most of y'all may have known us as Atlas Organics. That transition just happened in November of last year. Circular Service, we have, in the state of Florida, we have 5 composting facilities. I process about 285,000 tons of yard waste a year and 30,000 tons of food waste a year in my facilities. My background, I've been with Circular or Atlas for about 3.5 years, and I also spent about 10 years with Synagro doing food waste composting, or doing biosolids composting.
And Charlie.
Yep, so my name is Charlie Pioli. I'm the owner founder of O-Town Compost. We operate in, headquartered in Orlando, but serve, we even have a route here in Daytona Beach, Gainesville, Jacksonville now, and then the kind of Tampa, St. Pete area. But we collect and work with processors to handle about 300 tons of organic waste every month. It really just started from nothing. I used to be a waste consultant with MSW Consultants, and doing all those waste characterization studies at landfills, transfer stations around the country, I began to realize this organic waste makes up the lion's share of what's going to the landfill, and our landfills are running out of space.
Let's go to Xavier.
Hello, my name is Xavier DeRoos. I'm the founder of Renewable. We do residential and commercial composting throughout the state. We started in Broward County, but we currently service Miami, Broward, Orlando, Sarasota, Gainesville, and the Tampa St. Pete area as well. We do a bucket swap program for our residents. We have sealed containers for our commercial and municipal partners. We've had the honor of working with some really great large-scale businesses like Live Nation and Starbucks. Do Ultra and Formula One festivals as well. So again, started in our backyard in a condo, and friends started bringing material over, and it just hasn't stopped from there. So yeah, it's an honor to be here with you guys. I'm also the chapter director for the Florida Composting Council, trying to fill the ginormous shoes of Chris Snow, for those of you who know him. So if you guys have any questions about the FLCC or composting in the state, I'm happy to field any questions that I can.
Thank you, Xavier. And Bevan.
Hi, I'm Lennon Gaston with Gaston Treated Recycling, Gaston Mulch and Soil. We actually started out as Gaston's Tree Service in 1988. And actually, I thought it was 1986, but in 1988, they passed the George Kirkpatrick recycling bill that made everything we were doing with our debris illegal. Yeah. So we were the first state-recognized treated re-recycling facility, wood resource recovery in Gainesville. And it has been kind of a wild ride. And over the last few years, I have become a nut. And if you'll go to that next slide for just a minute, I want to introduce you guys to a friend of mine. Several years ago, and I won't tell you about that whole story, but I started paying attention to people that were PhDs that were no longer affiliated with the university system. You see this guy rolling around? His name is Albert. Let me tell you about Albert. Anybody, by the way, you look at him. I'm from Gainesville. Do you know why I named him Albert? Does he not look like? Now this guy is at over 100 magnification. And I won't tell you the way that I got there, but you see how much fun that guy's having. He is, I mean, loving life. We had no idea. If they'd showed me this when I was 13, I'd have had no life at all. I'd spent my entire life on a microscope. That guy is building soil structure. Over 25% of the animals we have are in our soils. And yet we're testing for nutrients. Now here's my big question. If we've got 100 years of research on 6 continents, basically around the world, showing that if we're testing for bacteria, fungus, protozoa, microarthropods, arthropods, we have a dramatic increase in production, a dramatic increase in flavor, a dramatic increase in the health of the plant. Oh, and everything on the farm that eats the plant. Why in the world are we testing for nutrients? Every soil in the world has the nutrients that are needed already in it. What we need is biology. Oh, wait a minute. Glyphosate? Herbicides? Pesticides? Fungicides? When are we going to start looking at the right things? How do we stop worrying about a little bit of odor and start really paying attention to why are we thinking about climate change? Maybe because they don't want us to know what they're doing to our soils. We have an opportunity to fix our environment. Florida is decades behind the rest of the country, which is decades behind the rest of the world. It's time to catch up. Pay attention. And I'm sorry.
You know, I love Levin because, you know, I always learn something every time he opens his mouth. And it's just amazing the amount of education that you've done, not only with the folks at FLCC and the members, but with a lot of people in the state of Florida. And I just want to thank Levin for all of his efforts. And he's obviously the grandpa of composting in the state of Florida. So thank you, Levin. We have a couple of preset questions, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give you guys an opportunity to ask our panelists any questions that you may have. I wanted this to be a little bit interactive because obviously, you know, it's been a long week, you're all ready to go, but I really want to make sure that you get any questions that you have answered, and I want to make sure that we have, you know, a good understanding as to what needs to be next. You know, I hate going to events like this and then going home and then 2 weeks later saying, man, I had all this fire and I was so excited and I wanted to get all this stuff done, and then nothing happens. So I want to make sure something happens when you leave here today. I want what Levin just said and what everybody else has said and what Miriam shared with us, I want that to resonate with you, and I want that to be something that you're going to be excited about and actually do something about after you leave here. Well, let me just start out with a couple of questions, and again, we'll open it up. I've got a couple of questions that I've put together that the panelists don't know about, so we'll see how that goes. Michelle, let me know what has been the biggest challenge with introducing food waste into your composting operation?
I would say that would be controlling odor and controlling contamination. Those are the biggest problems. Dealing with how to manage it and process it. Those are the normal issues that you would have to deal with. But when you have odor and now all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of birds showing up, or you have a bunch of pigs showing up on your site, that causes a problem. So you need to make sure that you're controlling that odor as best as possible. Easiest, most common way is whenever you're making your ASPs or your windrows, that you top it off with finished compost or over something that can be kind of a cap. That will help reduce things. There are other equipment that you can bring in, but for the most part, that's the cheapest and easiest. You just have to be very diligent that your operators are doing that and topping it off. The other is the trash. Depending on what source you're bringing in, there can be plastics, there can be paper products in there. That does not compost. You do need to go around and pick that out manually. And so there was a lot of times that we had to increase our manual labor just so that we could have people out there picking up trash, just to keep it out of the compost so that we don't. Then we also have equipment that you can put on the end of the screener. As you're screening, it'll help remove trash and plastics, but of course, if it's a big piece that's intertwined with your material, it doesn't get picked up by the air. So there's a lot of challenges with contamination, so we try to make sure that the source coming in is clean before it even gets to us.
Thank you. Awesome. Charlie, you and I have known each other for quite some time, since you first got O-Town Compost started. And it's been amazing to see the growth of your company. And I want to say, if there's anybody that's had passion for this industry, you have exuded passion. And I can definitely say that all of the YouTube videos, if you haven't seen some of Charlie's YouTube videos, you need to go out there, because he's done presentations to county commissioners and city councils and all, and it'll blow your mind. If you ever have to do a presentation into a government agency, let Charlie help you out. He's really good at it. But Charlie, what do you see on the horizon for food waste diversion policy in Florida?
Yeah, I mean, we look at city of Gainesville right now, the only municipality in the state that I know of with a commercial and multifamily food waste collection mandate. And they actually have a pay-as-you-throw curbside program, which is pretty unique for a municipality. You know, they've had this ordinance in effect the last couple of years, but it just so happens that the last city council meeting, they said they're moving forward with enforcement July 1st. So we're hoping our phone's ringing off the hook, but at the same time, we're, you know, not putting all our eggs in one basket. I think that what we would like to see, like cities run these kind of policy, food waste policies out of their sustainability departments and not so much the public works departments, who have their hands full just keeping the city running. There's more passion for these diversion policies out of the sustainability department, and that's one kind of change I would make if I was, you know, working for the city of Gainesville. But you know, there's a lot of competition in Gainesville with food waste service providers. We're not expecting this to be like a huge cost burden on businesses and multifamily apartments. We're expecting, you know, to kind of slowly change the culture and to take a little bit of, you know, power away from their exclusive franchise hauler, and you know, hopefully, you know, their biggest issue is that they're depending on this landfill up in the Panhandle, and you know, the cost of trash disposal just increased by like 30-40%. And Alachua County is even considering building a landfill now in the Balu Forest, just because it's gotten so pricey to run those transfer trailers up north. So they're looking at food waste and organic waste as, you know, a big material to take out of the waste stream and do something beneficial with. And we're hoping we'll be on the forefront of that.
Awesome. And I've seen you, like I say, speak to a lot of different communities about the benefits of composting, but can you give us a little summary of how is composting intertwined with, you know, many Florida major issues, including, you know, land conservation, agriculture, water, energy development?
Yeah, big kudos to FDP. They released a 2025 landfill capacity study that I always reference, and I wish, you know, more people in local governments would look at. Basically, the central region of the state of Florida has until like 2040 until we run out of the millions of cubic yards of permitted landfill capacity. Obviously, we can build more landfill capacity, but think of the opportunity cost. That's agricultural land we could develop for, all the people moving to Florida. That's, conservation land in the wildlife corridor, which we now realize that conservation easements, which are supposed to be forever, can get reversed, which is happening in, Orange and Osceola County right now with the split oak forest. So overall, do we want to keep building trash mountains in our beautiful state, or do we want to do something more beneficial with the space?
Awesome. Thank you very much. A couple questions that I have, and this is going to be for all 5 panelists, if you would. If you could get one thing accomplished to grow food waste diversion and composting in Florida, what would that one thing be? Let's start with me, Michelle. Yeah, if you could get one thing accomplished to grow food waste diversion and composting in Florida, what would that be? One thing. If you could just do one thing.
I mean, I would just say some of our most impactful clients and programs we do is like with Orange County Public Schools. There's a lot of huge school districts in this state. I think 4 of the nation's largest. And if we were to implement composting, recycling, and how to properly sort to these, kids, they grow up with that knowledge and understanding, and it just leads to like better, citizens and people who are more mindful of the waste they produce. So that would, I think, really ramp up food waste diversion.
I got one. I think we need more composters to accept food waste and get permitted to accept food waste, because that's the big thing. Like, I have several sites that are permitted to accept food waste, and we're almost at max capacity, and our door is being done. Food waste recycling is out there. There are people who want to send their food waste to a composter or somebody who will recycle it and not send it to landfill. The problem is we don't have enough facilities out there to accept it. That's where the big kicker would be.
Absolutely.
I think 2 things. I think we need more infrastructure. That kind of expands on what Michelle said. Absolutely, I think we need more infrastructure to handle food waste. It is promising with the DPAC that we just permitted, and also with the application we have in-house. And also education. I think education is really important. And that's something that we need to do a lot more of as an industry, is educating the public, schools, and this is a good thing, and it's good for the whole community.
Yeah, Luke, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think. Teach Levin how to use the microphone. I think the education is a big part. I think that if we could help Florida understand how important it is to get this in our landscapes, how important it is to get it in our sports fields, how important it is, wait a minute, in our wastewater management, not our wastewater management, our stormwater management sites. Brett Fawcett has got an enormous amount of research at the University of Georgia showing that if stormwater goes through the right kind of composted carbon, it pulls the hydrocarbons out of it. How about that? And then the hydrocarbons sit in the carbon in the stormwater management sites and breaks down. What? I mean, and it's in every part of this. We need more of this stuff going in the ground everywhere. So, what part do you have that is not getting the right kind of compost? Oh, and are we really measuring the compost for the active biology in it? Now, biology is going to become inactive, but if you've got it in there, when you've got it in the right place and the environment is right, it'll wake up and it will go to work.
But again, I want to remind you that every soil in the world already has the nutrients in it that those plants need. What it needs is the biology that will make those nutrients available to the plant. Glyphosate, herbicide, pesticide, fungicide. Now wait a minute. Right now we got so much forever chemicals that it's in our bodies and it's in our rainwater. But they're worried about a little PFAS and PFOS in our compost. When we got an opportunity to fix our soils, if we can really teach the people who use that, oh, and the people who make our rules that, we can fix our environment. We can restore our soils using the urban forest.
That's okay. No, I love the passion. That's awesome. That's a great question. I think that in order to like maximize the diversion of food, I'm gonna say something that I don't personally agree with, but it's probably to mandate it. If we wanted to see it happen, I'm from California, and I was here during COVID, and nobody in Florida likes a mandate. We know that. But with what happened in Gainesville, with a mandate, and they did kind of like a build it and they will come method, and it worked. Charlie said it earlier, that there's competition for food waste in Gainesville now. There were no composters there when they started the mandate. So it seems kind of backwards, but requiring the market to rise to the occasion will have a dramatic impact on the amount of food that's being diverted and collected and composted. I would also advocate that we mandate compost to be used and applied on our, at least our county and city parks. For example, we were awarded a grant in 2022 with Miami-Dade County because they spend $5 million a year on county parks alone for fertilizers. $5 million a year on fertilizers on the county parks in Miami-Dade, where they know 40% of that is going to run off into the waters. My background is actually marine biology. I came into this world from mariculture and aquaculture. I actually moved to Florida to import and export corals and fish around the world. And saving the oceans is a high priority. The aquatic ecosystems, they work with parts per million and parts per billion of nutrient loads. So you increase parts per million of nitrates, and you're going to have algae blooms and red tides and eutrophication, and the fish will die off. It doesn't matter how many corals you planted. If your water quality sucks, everything dies. So when we look at like the source of the pollutants, I know that there are some counties or some cities that have fertilizer regulations or bans, during the wet season. And that's because during the wet season, during a water event, 80% of that fertilizer is runoff, not just 40. 40 is when it's dry. So we have opportunities, I think, to get the food out of, which was the question, to get the food out of the landfill, but then turn that around and create a really high quality product that we use to mitigate water contamination and issues from there. So I think that having the stuff coming out and then a place to put it is how we create the market that will actually keep this sustainable.
Can I add a little bit more?
Sure.
Like I said, I'm a nut. But you've heard, for every 1% of organic material we add to the soil, we add 25,000 gallons an acre of water holding capacity. Now, we think for a minute that saves us a lot with irrigation, right? But do you know why that is? It's because our soil's compacted. And Albert's building soil structure. And so when it rains, the water doesn't run off and go into the stormwater system. It stays in the soil. Oh, wait a minute, when the soil's compacted and it's got a bunch of nutrients or fertilizers on the top of it, the fertilizer doesn't go into the soils and into the plants, it goes into the rivers. And so what we need is we need to decompact that soil. And we do that with Albert. And the other millions and millions and millions of stuff in every handful of soil.
Can I add something?
We're just going to pass it back and forth. But to Levin's point, the biology in the soil is remarkable. For a fun fact, everyone, if you have a handful of compost, you have more organisms than there are people on Earth. It's 8 billion organisms per spoonful of healthy living compost. So the Alberts that we're seeing on the screen is just one of hundreds of millions or billions in that pile.
How
So
do we know it's not Alberta?
it could be for you, Chris. It could be whatever you want. You can name it. You and Levin get to choose naming rights, or you take the next one. I don't know. But yeah, I think it is important to really draw the lines between the water conservation, the soil health, and the diversion, because that's why we compost. It's for all of those. It's not just the nutrient load by itself. So.
You can tell he's not from Gainesville. He doesn't know who Albert the alligator is.
Miriam, I'd love to hear your answer to that.
So the question was about advancing food waste. That was the question that was asked to the panel. And so I want to follow up on what Xavier said, and that was my first slide. So my first slide had those icons. The second to the left icon was, and down at the bottom were, you saw incentives, on them mandates and bans. So we did an 8-state comparison study, on what advanced composting and food waste composting about 10 years ago on the FORCE project, when FORCE was a bigger project. And Xavier is spot on. What advances recycling goals, recovery, are mandates, bans, and incentives. And we've had those in Florida, all three related to recycling and compost. So he is right. But what we implement, whatever role we are in this room, is based on where we're working, right? And that from a state level to an individual city or county level. And, I know Karen's taken, hits over the years. Where are the grants? Where's this? Why push for that? Do that? The truth of the matter is we have to work within and I mentioned, and I'm talking marketing assessment and the environmental capacity that we're in. So we're not in a state right now that's going to mandate things. We're just not. We're not in that state right now. Being in the industry for 35 years, it's been, changes throughout each administration that comes in. Same thing happens to you locally on what you want to do and not do. But Xavier is absolutely right. That is what has created robust composting. I want to continue to remember yard waste versus composting, okay? Remember that when we're speaking semantically about the state of Florida. So to move composting forward, it's the bans, the mandates, and incentives that have catapulted states like Vermont, Maine, California, and others. Another example is Texas. What did the state of Texas do? The government mandated the use of compost within their Department of Transportation throughout the state. That was a government, mandate in Texas, and FDOT includes that in all, it has specs, everything. We did do that in Florida, and everything is cyclical. If you look at history, it's like we're in a commodities business. We're in a commodities industries. That's what recycling is. Paper used to be our largest GMP export about 10 years ago. Talking that language because we work in a commodity-driven industry, whether we know it or not. But the truth is, that's how we're going to move things forward. But we're in this state right now, and what has to happen is get more involved in Florida CC, get more involved in the advocacy. Look at what 62709 is going to do to your goals and your business plan for what you want to do, and understand it so we can move the temperature thermometer forward in the state beyond how we flatline. Pretty much our flatline from 88, not moving past 5% to 6% recovery. So, and that is going to require us to unite together to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Well, I can say the reason why I asked that question is it's a question that gets asked of me a lot. I'm very active at the U.S. Composting Council and the Legislative Environmental Affairs Committee, which Chris helps lead for the USCC. And that's one of the questions, and I can honestly say that we have hit all of the three top suggestions that come to us all the time. It's infrastructure, it's education, and it's advocacy. So knowing that, let me ask the panelists, I'll just start with Xavier again, come back this way. What do you see the Florida Composting Council's role in supporting and growing composting in Florida?
That's a great question. I think that we are the conduit and the connection between the municipality leaders, the research at IFAS, the DEP team, of course, and the residents as well. And I think that we can help a lot with the education, with the unification of that education, right? I think that one thing that I'm really cognizant of in the composting world is not making the same mistakes that recycling did in terms of everyone gets a bin and everybody has different rules, and it depends on if you're in the city or in the county, and if your bin is blue or green on what's accepted, and who, if you have Waste Pro or WM or who. So I think that like unifying a message, making sure that the education is going to be unified and disseminated equally, and then having the resources, having the Forest website to be as a reference, and having people come to us as the connector, and then being able to do that. That's how I see the goal.
I agree with all of that, and I don't think that I have spent as much time with that, but I've spent an awful lot of time making sure that I was learning the right things and knowing the right things myself. But I do agree that maybe the most important thing that we do is we educate the schools, maybe the legislatures and the rule makers about all of this as well. And then if we can get the kids to understand what we can really do and bring that in. So I think that demonstrating it everywhere. I'm a city boy. I was raised 5 blocks from City Hall. I've never grown anything successfully. This past year, I got 3 tomato plants that in less than 6 weeks were 6 feet tall, and it given me 50 tomatoes. I mean, it's stunning what happens when you've got the right stuff growing.
I would have to agree with Xavier. I think it is about getting all parties together, for this effort that we're also passionate about. And so I would agree, the industry, local government, state government, but all working together towards this cause, and education. So I agree with that as well.
Yeah, same. Composting feels like an emerging industry, and there's still a lot of education we need to do, and I agree we need to standardize like even the bin colors and signage and what we accept and what can be processed. So
I would just like to point out that the majority of the people on this panel are board members for the Florida Composting Council, and we would like for y'all to join and be a part of this. Which what we need is we need more participation in the council to help with these programs. We need to do advocacy, we need to do education, we need to do outreach. We can't do that by ourselves. We need participation, so please join up with the Florida Compost Council and be a part of this.
Thank you all very much. Those are my questions. So now let's get to your questions. We have somebody. Yeah, pretty good.
I'll just go back and forth again.
Yeah, my question is for Lauren and probably for all composters. It's you mentioned in your talk that one of your major concerns should be dust control and air emissions or air quality. What should we be looking for? I mean, dust control is easy to put Mr.